Central to the Golden Age of Piracy was the Caribbean. Its numerous islands provided hideouts for notorious figures like Blackbeard, Every and Charles Vane. Central to this was Nassau, known as the Pirate Republic, alongside Port Royal, referred to as the wickedest city on earth, where contraband flowed freely. The influence of smuggling extended beyond the Caribbean, and the American colonies played a significant role in the pirate economy. Ports such as Charleston in South Carolina and Newport in Rhode Island were both targets and collaborators in the smuggling trade. The ports provided markets for stolen goods, offering a safe place for smugglers to unload their illegal cargo. The coast of West Africa was another crucial region, particularly for slave traders. Smugglers targeted slave ships not only for the human cargo but also for the goods they carried. This region homed notorious smuggling bases where the likes of Henry Everett and William Kidd would launch their attacks. From these strongholds they could plunder ships in the Indian Ocean, exploiting lucrative trade routes that passed through the region. The Indian Ocean itself was a rich hunting ground for pirates, targeting the lucrative Mughal ships and East India Company vessels brimming with spices, textiles and treasures. While this period was mostly characterised by the exploits of pirates, corruption of local officials who facilitated some of their operations was a huge part of the problem. Governors and port officials, especially in the Caribbean, were more than willing to turn a blind eye to piracy and smuggling in exchange for bribes or shares of any plunder. This corruption was key to the success of smuggling, as it provided safe havens where pirates could rest, repair the ships, and trade stolen goods without fear of being arrested. In the world of smuggling, success hinged on the expertise of its crew, with the captain standing as a seasoned leader whose decision would steer the fate of the operation. Think of notorious figures like Blackbeard, whose very presence commanded respect and loyalty. His crew was composed of seasoned seamen mastering the navigation of tough conditions to skilled gunners manning the cannons aboard the fearsome Queen Anne's Revenge. It extended beyond navigators and fighters, including indispensable artisans like carpenters and shipwrights, maintaining the ship to weather even the stormiest seas. Joined by surgeons crucial for treating injuries and illnesses, and blacksmiths skilled in the craft of weapon maintenance, the specialised crew formed the backbone of a top smuggling operation. Smugglers liked ships that were fast and nimble, while also being capable of carrying ample cargo. Common choices included sloops, frigates, brigantines and schooners. Sloops, known for swiftness and manoeuvrability, were perfect if a quick getaway was needed. Brigantines, with their 2 masts and larger hold, offered a balance between speed and storage. Schooners, boasting fore and aft rigging for enhanced manoeuvrability, excelled in coastal and shallow waters, making them a favourable choice. The legendary vessel of Blackbeard, the Queen Anne's Revenge, was a formidable frigate built for speed and manoeuvrability. Originally christened La Concorde, this fully rigged ship served both as a naval and merchant vessel under French command until its capture by Blackbeard in 1717. Armed with 40 guns, the Queen Anne's Revenge was a fearsome presence, providing the firepower necessary for Blackbeard's operations. Funding a smuggling operation required substantial capital, acquired through a network of investors and partners. Wealthy merchants and corrupt officials were common backers drawn in by the promise of lucrative returns. This financial support enabled the acquisition of ships, supplies, armaments and the payment of bribes to ensure safe passage and protection from the authorities. Henry Every's story shows this reliance on investment. Formerly a member of the Royal Navy, Every transitioned to piracy while serving on the Charles II, which was initially a privateering vessel financed by English merchants seeking profitable ventures. This shift to piracy offered investors the chance of substantial returns, with a significant share of stolen goods as a reward for backing the operation. Corrupt officials, including governors and port authorities, were in on the investments, accepting bribes or a share of the profits in exchange for providing the necessary cover and logistical support to allow smugglers to operate with freedom. Before setting sail, the risk of the operation must be assessed. One of the most significant threats smugglers faced was encountering naval patrols. European powers like Britain, France and Spain established extensive naval fleets to protect their colonial interests and combat smuggling and piracy. These patrols sought out smugglers using powerful warships to intercept and capture illicit vessels. Navigating through heavily patrolled waters posed real dangers, including the risks of confiscation of cargo, arrest, imprisonment and even execution. In addition to naval patrols, smugglers faced threats from rival pirates operating in the same waters. Competition for lucrative trade routes and valuable cargo often led to violent confrontations between pirate crews. Rival pirates wouldn't hesitate to attack smuggling vessels and seize their cargo, adding another layer of danger to the already dangerous smuggling endeavours. Unpredictable weather conditions on the open sea also pose significant risks. Sudden storms, hurricanes and rough seas could damage or capsize ships, endangering both crew and cargo. Navigating through stormy waters required a strong and skilled crew, emphasising the importance of having experienced seamen on board who would deal with the adverse conditions. Betrayal in the world of smuggling was a constant threat. They are pirates after all, and crew members could be tempted by promises of wealth from authorities and would sometimes turn informants. Betrayal took many forms, from leaking information about planned smuggling routes to outright sabotage. Smugglers had to carefully manage their crews, earning loyalty and trust while staying vigilant for any signs of disloyalty. A single act of betrayal could jeopardise an entire operation, leading to capture, loss of cargo, destruction of the ship or even loss of life. Smugglers capitalised on high demand goods such as sugar, tobacco, rum and slaves. Sugar, originating from the Caribbean, was one of the most sought after commodities in Europe, a staple for sweetening tea and coffee and preserving fruits. Often referred to as white gold due to its immense value, sugar offered incredible profitability. By smuggling sugar, transporters could evade the heavy tariffs and taxes imposed by governments in European states, maximising the profits. Tobacco, originating from the American colonies, was another high demand good with substantial profit margins. Extremely popular in Europe for smoking and snuff, its addictive properties ensured a consistent and growing market. Smugglers transported tobacco across the Atlantic, frequently dodging customs and duties that would otherwise diminish the trade's profitability. This evasion allowed them to sell tobacco at competitive prices while reaping significant profits. Rum, a staple of the Caribbean economy and a daily ration for sailors, was highly prized in Europe both as a beverage and a trading commodity. Its production was closely linked to the sugar industry, and smuggling was rampant due to the high taxes on imported spirits. By avoiding these taxes, smugglers could sell rum at lower prices, making it a cornerstone of the smuggling trade. Its widespread consumption and versatility in trade further cemented its importance in illegal commerce. The transatlantic slave trade, also known as the triangular trade, was a grim yet highly profitable enterprise of the era. European ships sailed to the West African coast where they exchanged goods like firearms, textiles and alcohol for enslaved Africans. These captives were then transported across the Atlantic under horrific conditions, a journey known as the Middle Passage. On board, slaves were packed tightly either on or below decks with scarce space to sit up or move around. The poor ventilation, inadequate food and lack of clean water led to widespread sickness and death among the enslaved. Spices, silks and precious metals were highly coveted items that significantly influenced smuggling operations due to the high prices in the European markets. These goods, being prime targets for smugglers, promised substantial profits. Spices such as pepper, cinnamon, cloves and nutmeg were in great demand in Europe, valued not only as flavour enhancers but also as meat preservers and for medicinal purposes. Originating from the East Indies and other parts of Asia, these spices travelled long distances to reach European markets, which made them exceedingly valuable. The rarity and the complexities involved in their transport further heightened their worth. The spice trade was dominated by powerful entities such as the Dutch and British East India Companies, which held monopolies over the trade routes. Smugglers who managed to infiltrate these routes stood to gain enormous rewards. This came with significant risks, as these companies had their own armed fleets dedicated to protecting their interests, making smuggling a perilous yet potentially lucrative endeavour. Silks, especially those from China and India, were highly prized for their quality and beauty. These luxurious fabrics symbolised wealth and status in Europe, making them a lucrative commodity for smugglers. In European markets, especially in the courts of royalty, silks fetched extraordinarily high prices. The demand for these fabrics meant that smugglers who could supply them stood to make substantial profits. To evade detection, smugglers often transported silk in hidden compartments within their ships, or collaborated with corrupt officials. The risks involved in smuggling silk were significant, including heavy penalties if caught. The potential profits from these high-demand goods, however, provided strong incentive for smugglers to continue their illicit trade. Gold, silver and other precious metals were central to the economies of European nations, valued not only as currency but also for making jewellery and other luxury items. The high value and relative ease of transport made smuggling these metals highly profitable. Unlike bulkier goods, precious metals could be easily concealed and transported in smaller quantities. Smugglers often melted down and reshaped these metals to disguise their origins, making it difficult for authorities to track and seize them. The discovery of vast quantities of gold and silver in the New World spurred a surge in smuggling activity. Pirates and smugglers frequently raided ships loaded with precious metals, often targeting Spanish galleons returning from the Americas. The wealth obtained from these raids funded further smuggling operations, allowing pirates to purchase supplies and bribe officials. The competition for this valuable cargo was fierce, leading to many violent encounters as rival pirates and smugglers fought for control of these lucrative shipments. To avoid detection, smugglers employed a variety of tactics and strategies vital for evading naval patrols, rival pirates, and authorities cracking down on illegal trade. Tortuga, an iconic island off the northern coast of Haiti, became a notorious base for pirates and smugglers due to its strategic location, natural harbours and loose governance. The island's hidden coves provided perfect cover, allowing smugglers to operate under darkness, change flags and forge documents. This made Tortuga an ideal haven for smugglers who could carry out their illicit activities with minimal risk of detection. Operating under the cover of darkness was one of the most effective tactics used by smugglers. The night provided essential concealment from patrolling naval ships and coastal authorities. Smugglers would set sail at dusk, navigating familiar waters with the help of the stars and experienced navigators. This allowed them to approach their destinations undetected, unload or pick up contraband, and depart before dawn. The reduced visibility significantly hindered authorities' ability to track and intercept these operations, making nighttime ventures a preferred method for avoiding detection. Smugglers took advantage of secluded and difficult to access coves to hide their ships and stash their goods. These hidden coves provided natural cover from the open sea, making it challenging for naval patrols to locate any smuggling activities. Known only to local smugglers and trusted allies, these secret locations served as safe havens where goods could be transferred to smaller boats for further distribution or temporarily stored until it was safe to move them. This strategy allowed smugglers to operate discreetly, minimizing the risk of detection and seizure. Forgery was another crucial tactic in a smuggler's arsenal. Smugglers often carried falsified documents that claimed their cargo was legitimate, listing fictitious destinations and sellers to deceive authorities. These false papers were expertly crafted to resemble official documents, complete with forged signatures and seals. In cases where ships were boarded and inspected, these documents could sometimes convince inspectors that the ship's activities were lawful, allowing smugglers to avoid the seizure of goods and continue their operations undetected. Smuggling wasn't just about evading naval patrols and rival pirates, it also involved establishing intricate networks of bribery and black market dealings. Smugglers formed alliances with local traders and officials to ensure the smooth operation of their illicit activities. These connections were vital for laundering goods and securing safe harbours. One notable example is the network built in Nassau by the infamous pirate of the early 18th century, Charles Vane. Nassau's local officials were notoriously corrupt, a fact exploited by pirates like Charles Vane, who used bribes to secure the cooperation or at the very least the non-interference of local authorities. Vane, known for his ruthlessness, cultivated a network that included key local figures facilitating his operations through various means. This network enabled Vane to move goods in and out of Nassau effortlessly, ensuring a steady flow of supplies and reinforcements to sustain his operation. Under Vane's network, the black market thrived, with local merchants and traders eager to buy looted goods at discounted prices. This relationship had mutual benefits. Merchants profited from the sales, while Vane and his crew received the supplies and money they needed. Collaborating with local traders and merchants was also essential for laundering stolen goods and integrating them into legitimate markets. In this corrupt environment, coupled with strategic alliances, Vane continued his smuggling operation with a significant degree of impunity. Officials and traders helped him maintain a stronghold even in the face of increased pressure from British authorities, showcasing the power and influence of his network in the shadowy world of smuggling. To maximise profits and evade detection, smugglers meticulously planned their routes, with the Caribbean to Europe being one of the most prevalent smuggling routes. Utilising the Gulf Stream for faster travel, key hubs in this network included the Bahamas, Jamaica and the Virgin Islands, all of which played pivotal roles in the distribution and transportation of contraband. The Gulf Stream, a powerful current in the Atlantic Ocean, was crucial for smugglers operating between the Caribbean and Europe. Originating in the Gulf of Mexico and flowing through the Straits of Florida, the Gulf Stream followed the eastern coastline before crossing the Atlantic towards Europe. This current significantly reduced travel time for smugglers, allowing them to outrun naval patrols and rivals. For experienced navigators, its predictable nature meant that the route could be planned with a high degree of accuracy, ensuring timely deliveries and reducing the likelihood of capture. The shallow waters in the Bahamas and the deep water harbours and smaller islands of the Virgin Islands provided ideal hiding spots for smugglers and pirates to conceal their ships. These locations facilitated the transfer of goods from large ships to smaller vessels. Moreover, being close to major shipping lanes made these locations convenient for intercepting merchant vessels and distributing smuggled goods to nearby markets. As a major British colony, Jamaica served as a central point for legal trade, but its bustling ports also made it ideal for smuggling operations. The island's major port, Port Royal, was infamous for its lawlessness and corruption before being destroyed by an earthquake in 1692. Smugglers exploited the island's commercial infrastructure to blend in with legitimate traders, making it easier to move contraband. Jamaica's proximity to both North and South America allowed smugglers to efficiently distribute goods across the Caribbean and beyond. In May of 1718, Edward Teeks, better known as Blackbeard, orchestrated one of the most audacious acts of piracy, the blockade of Charleston. With 4 of his ships, including his flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, he arrived off the coast of Charleston and blockaded the port. Over the course of a week, they seized several vessels attempting to enter or leave the harbour, with Blackbeard's main goal being to extract a ransom from the city. However, this blockade had significant implications for smuggling and illicit trade. By blockading a major port, Blackbeard disrupted the flow of goods, creating an opportunity to smuggle valuable items. The blockade also pressured local merchants and officials who were complicit in smuggling to comply with his demands. Unexpectedly, Blackbeard demanded medicine from the city, likely due to sexually transmitted diseases, threatening to continue the blockade and execute hostages if his demands weren't met. By controlling access to Charleston, Blackbeard effectively disrupted established trade and smuggling routes. Ships carrying goods such as sugar, rum and slaves were captured or delayed, demonstrated how pirates could exert their influence over trade networks and leverage power to facilitate or disrupt smuggling activities. In September of 1695, Henry Every, commanding his ship the Fancy, along with a small fleet, intercepted and captured the Ganges Sawai, a heavily armed Mughal ship returning to India laden with immense wealth including gold, silver and precious gems, along with pilgrims and nobles. Despite its firepower, Every's fleet managed to overcome the ship after a fierce battle, looting vast amounts of treasure worth tens of millions of pounds in today's money. The capture of Ganges Sawai had far-reaching consequences for trade and smuggling operations. The Mughal Empire, outraged by the loss, demanded action from the British East India Company and other European entities operating in the Indian Ocean. In response, the East India Company increased the naval presence and security measures to protect their vessels from pirate attacks, making smuggling much more difficult and dangerous. This attack also strained relations between the Mughal Empire and the British, with Emperor Aurangzeb threatening to expel all English merchants from these territories unless reparations were made and the pirates were captured. The success of the raid inspired pirates and smugglers to take greater risks in hopes of similar windfalls, which increased pirate activity in the region. The influx of looted wealth onto the black markets and the interrupted trade routes caused instability with commodity prices. Goods typically smuggled such as spices, textiles and precious metals saw fluctuating availability and value, affecting both legal and illegal traders. Throughout this period, smugglers disrupted traditional trade routes, creating a black market economy that undermined world powers and diverted wealth away from established empires. These operations created a deep web of bribery and was a contributor to the eventual decline of piracy, as governments had to constantly strengthen naval forces to protect their economic interests. If you enjoyed this video, I would also recommend checking out the video about Port Royal during the Golden Age of Piracy. Thanks for watching, I'll see you soon.